Welcome back, you filthy exiles. I finally got it working, and you would have seen in stream, I have Divine Ire up to a ridiculous level. As you would have seen in the B-roll, I can clear all the endgame with it currently. I haven't tried it on Maven and Uber Elder, but we'll get there eventually. Now, basically how this works, for anyone who doesn't know, you charge it up, same as my Incinerate build, basically from last league. And then you let off an almighty beam once you hit max stacks. Now, in the vicinity, as you can see here, you can see that it does damage to everything in the vicinity. So there's actually two formats of damage. There's the beam, and there's the radius around here. Now, I have got the alt gems, or the trans gems, but we'll talk about those in another video. So I'll do a test on those too, so you guys can see what it looks like. But basically, this thing is just blazing its way through T16s. The reason being they buffed it significantly, so now it's an actual playable skill. Now, a couple of things. This does use like infused channeling buffing. We did some big brain shit with that. It does use an anathema. So the way that we get so many curses is we have it set up on an arcane brand, and then we run Assassin's Mark, Conductivity, and Elemental Weakness. I think at this stage, the only thing that can't cast currently is Enfeeble, and that's because it requires too much mana and I don't have enough pool at the moment. So we've got to have about 102 pool, so or over 80. So I just need to fix that up, and my damage goes up, or my damage reduction goes through the roof again, which is currently letting me down in Delve. And then basically we do CI, so we do max block CI with glancing blows with the Aegis Aurora. Now the other thing is the Ralakesh, it still works. So basically it now counts. So you can't see that the charges are there, but the charges are there. So they're still computing and calculating into your damage. So you're getting, your frenzy charges, your power charges, and basically when we have a look at the tree, currently the crit on this is at 94.5%, like absolutely throttled out. Like that's with everything up. We get to about 6.1 million DPS on release of the main skill, and then about 2.7 million DPS on just the idle. So it does a pretty consistent amount of damage. Now, I have actually also done a target PoB for level 100, which gets to 17.8 million. And when we get it to that, and we are going to do this, I'll show you what that looks like. And then the channel alone is 7.9 million. So it just melts everything in the vicinity, including all bosses, everything. It's just going to be an absolute disgusting build. So basically, that's where we're currently at with the build. And we'll talk through the PoB and all the rest of this stuff. But yeah, it does use things like Replica Dragon's Flight. It does use Focus, which if anyone who follows my builds knows, I really like Focus because we get an extra 46% or 49% cast speed while we have Focus up, and we just map it to the move button. So that's really cool. The way we get Arcane, oh god, I can never remember the name of it. Arcane Surge is we proc our Sigil of Power, and this actually gives us damage reduction as well. So as you level Sigil of Power up, it'll also basically stop inbound damage. So enemies in the area deal 24% less damage while at max stacks, so that's 4 stacks. And the way that we can sustain this is running Inspiration and Arcane Surge, so you do get that buff, as you can see up here straight away. Now, you don't have absolutely everything up all at the same time. The only thing that really isn't up at the same time is Arcane Surge. And the other thing I also use in this build is also Nature's Patience. Now, the other metric, and we'll talk about it soon, is shock. So this hit manages to somehow hit, and it's probably because of the channeled nature. It hits 50% shock, so I've calibrated the tree for that as well. So you can see it when you sort of hover over the enemies, when you attack the enemies, it reaches 50% shock, so it does huge amounts of shock damage. But anyway, that's basically the build. Let's talk about the PoB configurations, get into the gearing, get into the skill gems, and then have a look at the tree itself and the Ascendencies. Okay, so as with all my videos, I like to go through the PoB and just double check and make sure that we're comfortable with everything that's going on, so nobody calls this a bait build, because it's not a bait build. It works. Anyway, so Bandit Quest, kill all, Solar Brine King. The reason why is we have to try and minimize the amount of stun that we get hit with, and this also stops us from being frozen because I don't have any other way to deal with that, and reduces chill effects. So basically, we deal with all of our ailments. Then we use Soul of Aberrath to stop us from being inflicted by Burning Ground and reduce the impact of Ignite. So that gets rid of that. And then we run Tempest Shield, which deals with shock. So we deal with our main ailments. We're Chaos immune. because we're a Chaos Inoculation character. Don't take Chaos damage, we don't take Chaos Dot, we don't take poison damage, and we have Corrupted Blood immunity, but we'll talk about that in gearing. Now, I've got here time spent stationary as 5 seconds. So obviously, if you adjust this, depending on how long, and realistically, you're probably going to stay standing still for 5 seconds to charge a huge hit. You'll do this. Now, power charges, frenzy charges, these are all ticked on because we're always casting when we stand still. So, like, but it makes no difference because this is the effect of the Ralakesh. So it doesn't matter whether they're ticked on, you get the effects of these. Focus I have ticked on. Obviously, this is a big damage area, but it's a free, basically, temporary aura. You constantly proc while you're moving around if you got it mapped to move. And on bosses, you just keep tapping a separate button like what I've got set up on here. So it's always available to you. So there's no excuse for that. And it lasts long enough that you can keep using it. Okay, so for Consecrated Ground, we're using Zealotry. So when we hit a unique enemy, we proc Consecrated Ground. We can see that in Zealotry itself. Bam. So you and nearby non-minions allies have 10% chance to grant Consecrated Ground when hitting a rare or unique enemy. And we further buff that up with the Watcher's Eye I have, but I'll talk about that later. So that's on Are You Channeling? Of course we're channeling. This is a channeling skill, so duh. Convergence. Convergence always procs when you fight rare or unique enemies. So fundamentally, you always have an element of uptime on this. So the way that convergence works is gain convergence when you hit a unique enemy, unique enemy, no more than every 8 seconds. So when you're fighting bosses, convergence is absolutely up. So that's not a question of whether or not it's not up or isn't up, it is up. So basically we come up here, Arcanist brand, we have procced on enemy, infusion stages. We use infusion, so yep, it's always up. Sigil of Power stages, we can amp this up to 4, so we get to 6.8 million DPS at 4 stages. Like that's if it's throttled up, but we have it set to 1, we proc it, let's be reasonable. But yeah, if we have it set to 4, we hit 301,000 effective hit pool, so definitely be proccing your Sigil of Power, because it is powerful. And then beyond that, we ignite enemies, we run Herald of Ash, that's the best in slot spell buff for Heralds. We shock enemies, so we get 50% shock, and that's coming off of our Divine Ire itself, because it's a lightning skill, so it also has an element of shock to it. Exposed to lightning, this is built into the gloves, so you have to do exposure with Elementalist builds. Sorry. So we have this built into the gloves, and then we have shocks spread to other enemies within 1 or 2 meters. And the other thing that we do here as well is we have Mastermind and Discord, which means when we do exposure, this enhances that exposure by another negative 25%. So we don't need to run penetration in this build because it does exposure. And then basically from there, Consecrated Grounds coming from Zealotry, Guardian Pinnacle damage. Do with that what you will. Anyway, moral of the story, pretty damn powerful build. I haven't adjusted anything else in here or any of this other crap. So yeah, you can do with that whatever you need to do with that. Now, can you run the same setup on Flame Blast? Yes. You can also run the setup on Incinerate or any other channeling skill. Go crazy. It's basically a template for that. Anyway, let's talk about the gearing. Okay, so I ran through gearing and forgot to record, so we're going to do this on a second take. So yeah, helm setup. We've got the implicit for increased mana reservation efficiency, which is the Ire roll. Really important to get this because mana reservation efficiency is a problem in this build now that they changed the replica Dragon's Flight. But we can compensate in a couple of areas, so you will need it on here. I also have the increased crit strike chances for spells, which was just a really cool roll I got. Everything else is all attributes to max everything else out, and maximum energy shield. I have an Aegis Aurora for anyone who hasn't run a CI Aegis Aurora build. Basically what it means is you get 2% of your armor back when you block, and that's really powerful, and you get a whole shit ton of armor with this as well, and a shit ton of ES. So really good shield. I do need to 20% it, because right now I haven't done that, and that's why I enjoy doing these videos, because I find mistakes I make. Then we have a replica Dragon's Flight. So this gives us +3 to Divine Ire gems, which gets our gem level up to about 27, and I'm pretty confident I can get it up to 30, which is going to get to big damage. But we also get mana reservation efficiency, which in this case I don't have a very good roll. And then beyond this, items and gems have 10% at reduced attribute requirements, which is actually pretty important in this build because we otherwise would be deficient in running certain things within the build. So yeah, really good. Really, really good amulet. Plus we have an Anoint for Charisma, which deals with our mana reservation efficiency issue as well. Then I have an Incandescent Heart. So this is just a really good chess piece, best in slot. And ideally we want to get a corrupted one, but I'll talk about that in a future video when I'm in a max. And this is really easy to get these gem colors as well. Now, you want +1 to lightning, ideally cast speed. So you ideally want a profane one, which gives you more cast speed, like 60 to 80% spell damage and crit multi. Mine's not perfect currently, and this is a scuffed one, but we'll be fixing this up in a future video. Now my ring sockets, I have Vivisect. So in particular, I have an attribute rolled Vivisect with 31 Dex and 31 Intelligence. This is really important because this build does run below the belt when it comes to attribute points if you don't balance it well. So you will need that roll. Beyond that, this is how you buff up. You get +5 levels to Discipline, in this case Val Discipline, and that gives me a hell of a lot more recovery and a hell of a lot more survivability ultimately at the end of the day. Now, the other ring that I run is probably one of my favorite rings is the Anathema. So basically what it means is you have when you cast a spell or whatever it is, in this case, I use Arcanist Brand to proc this. You get 17% chance to gain charges when you cast a curse spell, and that comes off of Arcanist Brand with Assassin's Mark, Conductivity, and Elemental Weakness. But what it also means is the curse limit that you have or hex limit is equal to your, or mark limit is equal to your maximum power charges. And in this case, I have 5 power charges, which are here. So we can see 5 power charges, so I can have a maximum of 5 hexes or curses, which means I get Assassin's Mark, Conductivity, Elemental Weakness, and I also run Enfeeble, which I'm having issues balancing the mana for, but I will balance the mana for that. But definitely a best in socket ring, and you also get cast speed off this bad boy too. Belt, this is not a best in socket belt, but I did use it to get my resistances up, and I also used it to get my energy shield up, strength. It does have armor on this one, which is going to be disappointing when I change this belt, because it's a really good belt. But yeah, if you can find a crystal belt, if you're over level 80, then that's going to be the preference, with all the same rolls basically. And if you want to get a better belt, you get a Baran rolled or a Crusader belt, and then basically roll percentage maximum energy shield on it, and basically I'll cover that in a future video. And that's going to throttle up your ES as well on your build further. Now, gloves, 2 really important roles on this. Number 1 is focus. In this case, this was the best focus roll I could find for 1 div I got these gloves for, but nothing else exists like this on the market. You can get a benchcraft for focus. It does roll of Syndicate. Basically, what it means is you get this little skill here, and I usually map it to my move button, and then it basically is a free temporary aura, which gives you 49% increased cast speed, or the max roll on the benchcraft, I think, is 34%. Which is a significant increase to cast speed and damage. Now, I've got all other attributes, and basically the other thing you will need on this is Inflict Lightning Exposure, because we need to have a source of exposure in the build to proc Mastermind and Discord, which then absolutely throttles up our mana regeneration, which is why we can run around on a caster and never go down in mana and run everything. And then beyond that, I've also got Relicash, and basically when you're standing still, you have the equivalent of all of your maximum charge, or all of your minimum charges being maxed out. So that's your Endurance, your Frenzy, and your power charges, which is why the Relicash boots are best in socket for, or best in slot for this particular build. Now, Flask. I've got a really bad Ruby Flask, don't judge me on it. Got to fix it up, so we'll leave it at that. I have auto trigger and everything else. I have a Basalt Flask with movement speed. I have a Granite Flask with increased crit strike chance. I have a Diamond Flask with 12% increased cast speed, and I have a Quartz Flask with increased block and stun recovery. All my flasks have gain charges when hit by enemy. I've managed to get 3 on everything but my crappy Ruby Flask. So that's basically the best in socket approach at this stage. But eventually I probably would change out the Quartz Flask. If I'm going deeper, I would probably keep the Quartz Flask, but I would put a Bottle of Faith in there. Or if I'm mapping, Aureus End is going to be the preference, and they're about 5 div for Aureus End and 2.7 div for Bottle of Faith right now. Okay, so gem setups. In the helm, Sigil of Power, Flame Dash. I've got Arcane support, so I can proc Arcane Surge. So you can see this pop up, usually. Anyway. And then I've got Inspiration support as well. Actually, I got to drop the Arcane Surge level. That's the problem. That's got to be a lower level. Anyway, we'll fix it up later on. So you got to level that to like 10, no more than 10. Anyway, in the wand, I've got Herald of Ash. I've got faster attacks, shield charge. So my shield charge is pretty fast, and then when I hit my focus, it gets even faster. So mobility is not an issue on this build, and we switch between shield charge and flame dash on this too. In my shield, I've got Molten Shell, Castle Damage Taken, and Enfeeble. You want to max all these out. Then in my chest, I've got Divine Ire. I've got a 2120 quality gem, just a standard, not any of the alts. Then I've got Physical to Lightning, which funnily enough is better than Elemental Focus, and you can't run Elemental Focus because then you can't shock. Then I've got increased critical strike damage, I've got infused channeling, I've got inspiration support to get my mana cost down and also increase crit. And then I've got empower. Now ideally we want level 4 empower, but level 3 is just going to have to do for now. So we want to get gem level up. Then in my ring I've got discipline, and then in my gloves I've got Arcanist brand, which procs assassins, mark conductivity, and elemental weakness. And in the boots I've got zealotry, determination, enlighten level 3, and temper shield. These are like 350 to 400 cows at the moment, so if you follow any of my delve content, I'll be putting a new one out in the next week. The easiest way to get this is just sell resonators, and you can pick these up for pretty cheap. Boots though are 3.2 div, so that's not fun. That's it for gem setups, really simple. Okay, the fun part, the tree. All right, so basically we'll go to Ascendencies in a separate section, so we'll talk about that later. So you come up from the Witch starting area to Arcanist Dominion, then we grab Practical Application first. We need this so we can have stuns are ignored while casting, and that counts while channeling. Then we come and get Annihilation. We then, what I usually do is I come up and get Mystic Bulwark, and then I come down and I get Arcane Will. And later down the track, I'll pick up Arcane Focus when I start to switch to Chaos Inoculation. Then we've got an Intuitive Leap, so we take Deep Thoughts, Instability. We also grab Presage, because we're using Herald of Ash to buff our spell damage. Then we buff up Discord Artisan as well. Then we come up and we grab Discipline of the Forbidden. This deals with power charges, so we get a lot more mana regeneration, crit multi, and then minimum power charges and gain power charges as well as we're moving around. Then I usually go to the right and we'll grab High Voltage, because this increases our crit against shocked enemies, and then 40% damage converted to lightning damage. And this is what's bizarre, is basically like converting all physical damage that we have to lightning damage, and that seems to work really damn well. Now, don't get Chaos Inoculation until you apply Aegis Aurora. I did it in like Act 10 because I had the gear, but if you don't have the gear, don't apply it yet. You'll just die constantly if you switch to that. Then I got Influence with 8% damage for each aura. Then I came down and got Written in Blood. 100% energy shield from equipped helmet. Because I have such a big ES helmet, this is really useful. And then I also got Doomcast and 25% crit multiplier against unique enemies. Then I came back across, we got Unnatural Calm, regenerate 2% of energy shield per second. We'll talk about the cluster jewels soon. Then we come down and get Arcane Guarding, and then we also want 1% of block attack damage per 5% chance of block on equipped shield. Now, if we can get around this, we could also up damage by having 1% critical strike multiplier per 10 energy shield on shield. And we have 185 energy shield and we're nearly 200, so that will give us 20% crit multi if we could get that. Now, you want to take Zealot's Oath only when you've got Chaos Inoculation set up, so just have that there as when you're ready. We come down, we get Sovereignty. We also get the auras from skills that have 10% increased effect. Then we come down, we get Faith and Steel, and we want the 10% of physical damage from hits is taken as Chaos damage. The reason why we want this is because Chaos Inoculation means that we don't take any Chaos damage. And if we're converting 10% of our physical damage into Chaos damage, that means that we're mitigating a whole 10% of inbound physical damage 100% of the time. So it's very useful and very strong. Then we come all the way down, we grab a Divine Shield. I've got a Watcher's Eye positioned here as well. So my Watcher's Eye has increased critical strike chance against enemies on consecrated ground. So enemies that are closer to me basically get wrecked. And then gain 20 energy shield per enemy hit while affected by discipline. I've got an overcharge node here to get one more maximum power charge, and then I come down and get glancing blows. And that gets me to max block, which we have here, which is perfectly balanced. Now, cluster jewels. So I did want disorientating display here, but widespread destruction is just going to have to be the go. Now with this one as well, I've got overshock. So this just means increased effect of lightning ailments being shock. So shock does more damage. That's why this build hits so hard. Thunderstruck is awesome. So what you would have noticed in the footage is as enemies are closing in on me, when I'm pulsing my Divine Ire sort of lightning around me, it's pushing the enemies away from me. And it's stopping that crowding problem that happens when you run channeling builds. So basically, this is now your critical strikes are knocking back. Because I have 95% crit strike, I have 95% knockback. So basically, enemies can't touch me. And this applies to map bosses. This applies to most bosses outside of your primary pinnacle bosses. And like your guardians, I haven't really taken notice of that. But yeah, super powerful, really good defensive stat, because if the enemies can't touch you, they can't damage you. Unless they're shooting you with off-screen crap. That is pretty common too. But that's what we got max block for. Anyway, so then we've got Rapid Infusion. We've got Vital Focus. This gives us regeneration while we channel. And obviously channel damage. Now, increased effective infusion. And also 5% increased movement speed while you have infusion. So it makes me a hell of a lot faster when I'm moving around map. As you would have noticed, my build's quite mobile. Then I also have Nature's Patience. So as I'm standing still, I get Grasping Vines. This is very similar to Bone Shatter. And this just adds a huge amount of defensiveness when you're sort of beached and not moving. And basically, the easiest way to get out of this is just to go and dash with your Flame Dash. Then we come up, we get Rapid Infusion again, Unwavering Focus, so the 50% chance to avoid being stunned while channeling. And then I've got just a Corrupted Blood jewel in here, which gives me crit multi, decreased effect chill, all that sort of good stuff. And that's about it for the tree setup. So, and then we talk about Ascendancies. So first Ascendancy is Shaper of Storms, then you get Mastermind of Discord, then Heart of Destruction, then Bastion of Elements, which gives you Primal Aegis, which is freaking OP, huge damage reduction there. And then on my tree I've got Primalist. I've got Might of the Bear as my first, and that obviously gives me the rucksack here. But then I've also got Saboteur's Lupin Charm of Pathfinding, which I didn't know existed until I got it. 24% to critical strike multi against burning enemies because we're igniting enemies. I hope that works that way, actually. We have like a burning proc, so I'm going to double check that. But recover 2% of life when you use a flask, so that's why we have such high life regeneration. And we always use flasks because we've got auto-triggered flasks. And then 38% increased critical strike chance against shocked enemies. Obviously, we do a shitload of shock, so it's just free crit strike chance. Now, the other one I've got is Hierophant's Corvine Charm. So 9% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills with regenerate 1.4% of energy shield per second. Just another way to get around the changes that have been made to Replica Dragon's Flight at the end of the day to fit all of our auras in. Now, I got a little bit of balancing to do with this. And obviously, we've got one more charm socket to go. So who knows what we're going to put in that, but we're probably going to put something like Cull in there, or Onslaught, or something. Cull and Onslaught would be really cool because that would up the damage even more and it'd be even crazier. But yeah, that's it for the tree. Really simple stuff. Alright, so I hope this video helps you get your build underway. Now, other things you can do with this tree. You could put Flame Blast in, Flame Blast got buffed. You could put Incinerate in, Incinerate got buffed. It's now got 2 extra stacks. You could put, was it Storm Burst in it? That got buffed, I'm pretty sure. And also, it's a channeling skill, so it'll work exactly the same and do very similar damage. You could play with the tree. Basically, you could put Scorching Ray in and basically change the fire gems from the lightning gems. Again, very likely will work very similarly. There's a whole heap of things that you could do within this tree to replicate it. This will work across the board. Some skills may work better than others. That's how it is. Lightning Tendrils will work with this as well. But yeah, have a play around, see what you think, see what you can do, come up with some crazy builds. But yeah, I hope this video helps you and gets you on track with playing Divine Ire for the first time. I'm going to continue playing this. I'll probably sit about 350, 400 depth and delve because that's pretty comfortable and I don't really take a lot of damage down there, which is pretty respectable for this type of build. But I'll keep amping it up and making it a lot more defensive, and basically delve will just be a piece of cake. We get to like 500 and we'll just do horizontal running and find Crystal Kings and kill them. And this build can take down bosses pretty easily, can take down Crystal Kings pretty easily so far. But we're looking at getting a multiple of like 3 on the damage scale to like 17.8 plus million DPS at the very end game of level of this build, which I'll put that POV in the description below as well. But anyway, yeah, don't forget to like and sub to the channel. Don't forget to follow the Twitch. And yeah, hit me up with any questions in the description below, in the comments below. But anyway, until next time, have a good one, and I'll see you guys on stream or later.